Welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast by CommQuest. My name is Bill. Our show advocates for the principle that recovery is possible. There is a chance for a better life. May is Mental Health Awareness Month and has been observed in the United States since 1949. Every month is Mental Health Awareness Month here at CommQuest because it is one of our three pillars: mental health, addiction recovery, and social outreach. During May, there is a national movement to raise awareness about mental health. Some of the goals of this movement are to fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support the millions of people in the United States affected by mental illness. With us today are Dr. Michele Heberling, Chief Clinical Officer here at CommQuest. Michele, welcome to the program. It's so nice to have you here.
Good morning. Thanks so much. Good to be here.
Thank you. Grete Heatherly, Clinical Site Coordinator at Alliance Outpatient. Grete, always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here.
Leading off, I probably should mention that nearly 1 in 5 Americans lives with a mental health condition, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Michele, I'll start with you. We hear the term mental health a lot, and that can mean a lot of things. What are some of the most common disorders associated with mental health conditions?
The two most common disorders that people talk about is definitely depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And both depression and anxiety run a wide spectrum. So it can be everything from experiencing a little bit of sadness or a period of time where maybe there's an external trigger, a loss, something going on in your life, and you sort of have a dip. You experience a period of time where you're not feeling that well. Things become more difficult. Life becomes harder. You feel those feelings of sadness, all the way through debilitating depression, where folks stop going to work, they stop leaving the house, they stop engaging with family, friends, everybody, and it can become incredibly debilitating. Everything sort of comes to a halt. Similar things with anxiety. People talk about having anxiety or being anxious fairly frequently. And again, that can go everything from being nervous, maybe doing a podcast, something like this, feeling a little bit, nervous or anxious, again, all the way to where it's debilitating. And there's extreme fear. There's physical reactions to anxiety that, again, prevent folks from engaging in things that they enjoy, work, social things, all of it. So one runs a wide spectrum. But again, anxiety and depression are definitely the two most common that we hear about and talk about.
Yeah. One of the things I'll hear someone say about depression is, what do you got to be depressed about? You're young and you're this and that and the other thing. And I understand the sentiment, but I think depression in that regard is often misunderstood. It's not really a mood. It is something that's a little bit more chronic. It's not just having a bad day. Is that correct?
Correct. For something to become a diagnosable mental health condition, there are criteria that have to be met. So it's not just feeling sad for a day or two. It's not even, in some respects, you're not going to get a diagnosis of depression if there is a loss, say a parent or a partner passes away. Mm-hmm. There's grief that's associated with that. And that's a normal, typical reaction to an external stressor. For something to become an actual diagnosable condition, criteria like not being able to go to work, not engaging in things that you used to enjoy, withdrawing from family and friends. There's an extraordinary level of experiencing those emotions along with other factors in your life that truly the hallmark is it's impairing your ability to get through your day the way you would like to, the way you're used to. A significant impact on your functioning.
Sure. There are times, and it's very hard for an individual to analyze themselves, but sometimes maybe a family member can notice some of the things that aren't quite right. What are some of the key things that an individual might experience that indicates that they're having an issue?
Everyday functioning, exactly like Dr. Heberling said, those would be some signs. And those are the places where those things are noticed first. Usually it is either family or friends saying, you're not yourself. And at that point, the individual may think Yes, I've noticed some things for myself. Maybe I want to sleep a little bit more, or maybe I don't sleep as much. Maybe I'm eating too much or not eating enough. I don't really care to do the things that I like to do. I just don't like them anymore, and I don't know why. Yeah. And there is definitely a spectrum on that, like Dr. Heberling said, but those would be the major things to look for would be behavior.
When you notice something like that, a lot of times what people will do, especially when it's with their children, is they'll sort of dismiss it. Well, it's just a phase. You know how teenagers are, words to that effect. That's just what you have to go through when you go through school. Would you advise, and I would probably say the answer is yes, is to say something like you just said, sit somebody down and say, hey, I noticed that you're not enjoying football anymore, and you're laying around in your room a lot. Is there something wrong? Is that, it's always a good idea to say something, Lisa.
I would say yes. And I think Dr. Heberling would agree that yes, that would be my one recommendation is say something, bring it up in a conversation. Now, you had mentioned children and adolescents especially, and we have to point out that different age groups, even different sexes will perhaps different signs that there is something going on. If a child is struggling with some anxiety or depression, they may throw tantrums or they may act out. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the same signs for everyone.
Sure.
Teenagers may start, again, doing things that they don't normally do. Sometimes they're brooding, sometimes they're aggressive, but their age group can have a little bit of a different reaction to feelings of feeling depressed or even anxious.
A lot of times, not only are adolescents an issue and people we have to deal with who are experiencing life in a certain time, in a certain moment, but older folks, a lot of times they're facing, my life is over. I'm getting older. Life is passing me by. How do you address some of those issues? Because they're in a different place as well as the adolescents are.
Yes, definitely. I mean, life stages are also something that we look at about, again, how people are experiencing potential symptoms and what their mental health is like. So people at a later stage of life will be experiencing things that have very much to do with what you mentioned, nearing end of life and purpose changes and meaning changes. And symptomology may also be different if there is such a thing. But mental health is just as important across the lifespan, for children to adolescents to midlife to late life stage.
I think it's really easy to write it off. I think it's really easy to write it off that, mom or grandma is sad because, they're older and they're not working anymore and their kids don't come to visit them often enough and things like that. And so they just go, that's part of getting older and being sad. Like that's just part of, and that's not the case. They can experience depression. They can experience anxiety, and there's help out there for them. There's support group. They can benefit from clinical intervention, from treatment, as well as increased support and communication and, engagement with their family and friends. But I just think it's so important because it's so easy to forget that, there's so much that can be experienced. There's so much joy that can be experienced in older age and older life. And it just doesn't have to be, we go quietly into the night. There can still be a lot of joy to be had. And if you notice changes in your parents, your grandparents, things like that, to check in with them, because it may just be beyond the aging process. There could be significant mental health issues underlying what's going on with them. And there is help. It doesn't have to be that way. So don't forget them in the sort of the busyness and the crossfire of all the things going on in life.
I am also aware, too, that there are cultural factors which can impact how someone is going to experience a given mental health issue. And a lot of times how they identify can also impact that. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. Different groups experience symptoms in context of their cultural identity and cultural experiences. And we are always mindful of that when we are looking at those patterns of behavior that determine a diagnosis or not at all times. We want to be aware of what someone's experience has been given their socioeconomic status, their age, gender, potentially or non. All of those factors come into play when we consider what somebody may be experiencing and how they're experiencing it.
Once somebody realizes that they are struggling, stigma can often prevent them from seeking help. Many fear that it is a sign of abnormalcy in their personality or their makeup. And I've even had people tell me, I'm not sure that I want to get help because it can come back and haunt you. It's a strike on your medical history, depending on what your profession is. Michele, what is the proper context of the things you have to face when you seek help for a mental health condition?
I think it varies greatly depending on the person, depending on their profession, their career. Unfortunately, there's often stigma for folks where the perception is if they are suffering from a mental health condition that it will negatively impact their job. And unfortunately, those folks, sometimes instead of getting help, they will try to hide it and just deal with it on their own. I will say I've been pleased to see in recent years where a lot of the first responder types of professions and military and things like that have really acknowledged the existence of mental health issues, as well as the ability to respond well to treatment and work with folks in that profession to continue to do their jobs. Where I think, a few decades ago, if someone acknowledged that they were experiencing trauma or they were experiencing depression or anxiety, that would be the end of their career. And we've seen a real change. I've been here 17, 18 years almost. And I just in that time have seen a change in folks' willingness to seek help where maybe they wouldn't before, but now they've got that support of their union or the advocates in their profession. But there's still definitely a stigma to seeking help. And it's just finding the resources that work for you, understanding that when you're seeking help from an organization like CommQuest or other behavioral health organizations, there are laws and rules and things like that protect your confidentiality, that protect folks being able to access your medical records. There's limits on what people can access. And we take that confidentiality extraordinarily seriously. If there is any silver lining that I would say that's come from the COVID pandemic that we've dealt with over the last couple of years, is there's a greater recognition of depression and anxiety and even trauma and PTSD existing in our society. It's been much more in popular culture. It's been discussed at greater length. More people have come forward and been willing to talk about the struggles that they experienced during those 2 years. So I think while it was a horrible, terrible time for most people, that's the one silver lining that has come from this, is a greater recognition that it's okay to experience these challenges in your life, and it's okay to seek help.
Once someone has reached that point and they say, okay, something's going on here, I need help. Now, obviously, here at CommQuest, we're here to help that individual. But a lot of times, just for the sake of discussion here, if you're an individual that, all you've ever done is gone to, quote unquote, the regular doctor, for sore throats and things like that, and you've never been in a position where you've had to seek out mental health, what would be the best way when you're starting from zero? And you don't have any friends or anybody you can ask, and nobody really has a good answer for you. What is the best way to reach out for help?
I would say, especially this day and age with, our social media would be a good place. Googling just mental health services in the area. If somebody lives in Stark County, just putting in, mental health help or mental health services in Stark County. And there are a lot of resources that pop up right away. Sure. And that would be, I would say, the easiest and most accessible way.
How do you gracefully tell, and I say gracefully because it can be very delicate, either a friend or a family member, and it's used as a pejorative statement so much, hey, I think you need help. So how do you say it in a way that it is supportive. I think you're beyond the scope of us having a conversation and you feeling better. I think you need professional help. How do you approach that?
So I think there's two pieces there. I loved Grete's answer in terms of identifying resources and ways to find it. I want to add as well, the Stark Mental Health Recovery Services Board has a great website that has a link to a lot of different resources in Stark County as well. I also want to answer your question a little bit, maybe differently as well, to say that mental health help or treatment, it's not really treatment, but it doesn't have to always start with a professional. I want folks to understand that if you think you're struggling with something, start with some really basic self-care kinds of things. Start there. Start with maybe increasing some exercise, using compassion with yourself, doing some journaling, spending some time just taking care of yourself, and then reaching out to friends and family. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. Sometimes it's just having some conversations and having someone say, I understand that's really difficult. It sounds like you're really struggling with that, and being able to be open and be accepted by people that you love and care about. That can be the first step towards getting help. But once it gets beyond that, to your point, once it gets beyond that, there's a few things that go into it. Number one, I think it has to come from a place of compassion. So one of the things that parents face in particular with their children and sometimes friends and siblings and spouses, when you have a loved one that is struggling with a mental health condition, it can get frustrating. It can get frustrating when you're like, just get out of bed. Just go to work. What is going? It can get frustrating for you to watch day after day. And sometimes it takes a recognition that, oh my gosh, this isn't just a willful choice that this other person is making. They're really struggling with something. And if you can kind of wrap your head around that a little bit and take a step back from how the issue that they're struggling with is impacting you or impacting your family or things like that, and recognizing, wow, they're really struggling with something, and trying to understand their emotional state, understand what's going on with them. This isn't a choice. This isn't something that they're using to be manipulative, and having compassion for that, even if you don't understand it, but understanding you don't understand it, and acknowledging that, and coming at this conversation that you might have with this person from a place of compassion, empathy, love, understanding, doing it in a safe way, in a safe space. So it might be when you're taking a walk. It might be after the kids are in bed and it's a quiet space and it's a safe space. If it's with an adolescent, it might be when you're driving in a car with them and it's just the two of you, if they have siblings, and they might not want to have that conversation if there's siblings around or other people around them. So it's finding a safe space to have the conversation. It's having yourself in a place where you can come at the conversation from a compassionate, calm, perspective, and letting them know that they're accepted no matter what's going on, letting them know that you care about them, that you're asking them or suggesting they may benefit from help or talking with someone for them, for the benefit of them, because you care about them, and not coming at it from that place of frustration or I need you to do this for me. It's about, I'm worried about you. I'm concerned about you. I love you. I care about you. And I'll be here for you no matter what. And it's important to understand as well, sometimes people aren't ready for that. They may just not be ready at that point when you're having that conversation to seek out treatment. And so it's saying, I'll be here when you're ready. I still love you. I care about you. I'll be here when you're ready to do that. And I'll help you find the resources. I'll help you to seek out what you need if that's too much for you, or just to show that you're a partner with them in this journey and in that experience. Sometimes that is enough just to know that the person they're talking with loves them, cares about them, will be there with them. They're not on their own. And regardless of how it plays out, they're going to be okay.
Yeah. That is so important. That information is so critical, because so many times people have been struggling with something for a long time, decades sometimes. And saying those things to somebody could change the trajectory of their entire life. It might even save their life. a lot of times it can be frustrating when you're dealing with someone who has an issue, like you said, why don't you just get out of bed? Why don't you, do something and then you'll feel better. In that moment, it's easy to be critical of that person. But being a caregiver, and I can speak about this because I was a caregiver. My mom was dying, and when it's 24 hours a day, you're never really asleep. You're never really relaxed. You're never really going somewhere without wondering if your phone is going to ring. It can be a situation which we call compassion fatigue. It happens obviously with family members who are exposed to it 24 hours a day. It happens, I'm sure, with providers. Can you talk a little bit about the support that we should be giving people who are helping others?
I think it does start with family members and friends that are supporting somebody that is struggling with significant mental illness. We definitely see this with parents whose children are struggling. They can experience so much guilt and shame. And how can I not keep my child safe? How can my child be experiencing this? Is it something I did? Is it something I failed at? What do I do? There's such a sense of shame that can come with that. And it can be absolutely exhausting. As you said, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you're constantly worrying. You're worrying about that person. You're worrying about, what if it doesn't get better? What if they hurt themselves? What if there is no end to this? What if this is going to go on forever? It can just be so exhausting and anxiety provoking and overwhelming to where it becomes difficult to kind of focus and think about anything else. And for many folks that are taking care of children or spouses or parents or just people in their lives that are struggling with significant mental illness or addiction issues and things like that, they can be incredibly hard on themselves. They're also trying to do all the other things in their life that they need to do, work and take care of kids and all the other people in their lives and things like that. And so having compassion for those caregivers is incredibly important. And sometimes it can be as practical as giving them a break, as saying, hey, why don't you go take a walk, or why don't you go take a nap, and I'll stay with whoever this person is. If maybe they're hospitalized and they're trying to attend to their loved one that's currently hospitalized or in residential treatment or something like that for the challenges that they're facing. Maybe it's, why don't you go do that, and I'll take care of this, or I'll take care of the kids for a little while, but take care of you. Or here's a spa gift card, which is often difficult for people to find that kind of space to get away. And sometimes it's just having a listening ear for them. They feel like they have to be there for this person all the time, but who's there for them? Who's there for the caregiver? And you mentioned staff as well. And it's something that I do onboarding for all of our new individuals that are coming into CommQuest. And it doesn't matter what role they're coming in for. I always talk about the honor that it is for us as folks lucky enough to work at CommQuest or to work in behavioral health. It is truly an honor for us to be able to walk the journey with the individuals that we are treatment, to walk beside them. Sometimes we're the first person that ever heard their story. We're the first person they ever opened up to. We're the first person to ever tell them, it can be okay. You can be okay. And we'll be here for you. But that is exhausting. And I always talk about, you have to pay attention to self-care. You have to be able to leave work at work and be in a space where when you get home, you're able to focus on the things that rejuvenate you, because compassion fatigue is a real thing. And I want everybody, and Grete wants everybody, we want you to be able to come back to work and do it all again the next day. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do that. And that's the same for caregivers, for folks that are struggling with a mental health issue. It's not just going to go away tomorrow. So to be able to get up and do it again tomorrow, maybe you have to find that space today to do something for yourself and recognize that that's okay.
Speaking of taking care of yourself, sometimes it helps so much to know that you're not alone. And Grete, you mentioned about some of the support groups that we have here at CommQuest. Yes.
Something that we have that is unique in the community is our family support group that runs on Tuesday nights at our Market Avenue location at 5:30. And there doesn't need to be any kind of sign up or any special anything special to be completed beforehand. Just show up and take part in that support group as needed and as wanted. And that's a really great resource to have to be with others who are experiencing similar situations and get some information about how to take care of yourself while going through supporting someone else.
Obviously, here at CommQuest, we are a nonprofit, and we try to do our best to be a place where people can come and seek help a lot of times. But we do need help from partner agencies and the community at large. Grete, I know you talk to people a lot. You're very involved in people coming and going and hearing their remarks. How can people in the community support mental health and the agencies that provide care? If someone's listening to this and saying, I do believe this is a cause, how can I get involved? How can I help?
I'm thinking of the easiest way. And I would say it would be getting educated on what mental health is, what mental health help looks like. And here at CommQuest, we offer that. We will go to any workplace or entity, and we've done a recent lunch and learns where we've talked about what we do as an agency and how we can help people in the community. And that would be honestly the best way, is just educating yourself on what mental health is and what help is out there in the community. Like Dr. Heberling said, the Mental Health Board has a great website. Our website offers resources. Just calling us, we will offer information. I often have people just calling in from different people in the community asking, I have an individual who's struggling with this, or I would like to offer this. What can I do? And we are more than happy to, if we don't have those resources, to point them to resources, but often we do have the resources and to help with establishing them. Also, beyond education, is getting involved with causes that support mental health is a great way to also do that. And in doing that, there is also education. So it comes full circle.
And I think advocating as well, being an advocate for mental health. As you said, there's lots of events and things like that. There's 5Ks, there's fundraisers, there's events in the community that put faces to what mental health looks like. Sometimes folks are like, that's the other, that's not us. There's this separation. And so by recognizing and being willing to stand up and say, I've struggled too, or I support somebody that is struggling, and I support and value the treatment that's available for people. And the reality is that this is often nonprofit behavioral health organizations are the ones that are providing the support for the neediest individuals in our community. And so sometimes it is going to fundraisers, it's providing donations, and donations don't always have to be just cash. We have amazing volunteers that come in and paint, or they support landscaping, or they help with mailings. There's a variety of different ways to volunteer. If you don't have dollars, if you have dollars, that's great. And sometimes just being an ally and an advocate and being public in your support of the issues that there's stigma around still.
Sure. One of the things that I'll kind of throw out there is being in the marketing department myself. A lot of times I'll get asked, what does a nonprofit need a marketing department for? Our role isn't to sell a product per se. Our role is, for one, to raise awareness in the community because of the fact, as you said, it affects donations, it affects people volunteering and all of these other things. And there's a lot of times when things can come up for a vote. There's a bill now you were telling me about prior to the show. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. So House Bill 33 just went through the Ohio House that is really supportive of increasing Medicaid rates for behavioral health services across the state. It's going to go before the Senate relatively soon. And so we're really asking for folks to reach out to their senator and ask for their support in this amendment. It's HCO 294. But basically, if you're reaching out to your senator, you're talking about this with your friends in your social circles and trying to provide support for it. It's basically the funding request that's going to go before the Senate that would increase increase Medicaid payment rates for community behavioral health services by an additional 10%. And we're really struggling in community behavioral health with shortages in staffing, in providers, and the Medicaid rates haven't changed for a long time. And it's those community behavioral health centers, we're often the ones that are providing support for those in our community that are the neediest, that we're providing those services for folks who their funder is Medicaid. And those additional resources are going to go a long way. If we can get that approved at the state level, they'll go a long way to stabilizing the workforce, stabilizing and reinforcing our community behavioral health services that are available to our community. It's really important. That advocacy will be very helpful.
What would be your message of hope for how mental health is regarded and treated in the future?
The most exciting thing is to recognize that there is help. There are a number of great therapies out there. There's a number of great services that help in various ways. So at CommQuest, as you're aware, Bill, there's everything from prescribers that can provide medication for folks that need that, to counseling, to outpatient counseling, to school-based counseling. We have peer support. We have supported employment. We have case managers. We have residential treatment. We have all of these different things. So it's recognizing that there's so many different avenues or streets that will take you to healing and recovery and can help get you there. I think with the expansion of sort of acceptance of mental health as a treatable condition that folks can recover from, can go on to lead incredibly fulfilling, enjoyable lives. There's also a great deal of research that's being done that this is a relatively new profession. So if you look at things like general physical medicine, that's been going on for millennia. It's been going on for a very long time. Psychology in the field of treating mental health and addiction issues is really a baby in the vast field of medical intervention for issues that impact people. And it's an exciting time in terms of evolving therapies and treatment that have evidence behind them that they work, that you can see significant improvement in chronic conditions. You can see folks really living their best lives. And I think we're going to continue to see over the next few decades, certainly a greater understanding of the biological underpinnings that are impacting mental health sometimes. So there's that nature and nurture conversation of some folks are born more predisposed to experiencing even psychotic disorders, as well as depression, anxiety, even trauma, being more vulnerable to traumatic experiences. And there's a significant emphasis occurring in understanding brain chemistry and brain functioning and neurological structures and their impact on mental illness and how it presents and predisposition towards it and even recovery from it. And so it's actually a really exciting time to be in this field. I can't wait to see what new treatments and new understanding comes to mental illness over the course of the next 20 and 30 years. I think it's going to be revolutionary in many respects and in treating many disorders.
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. Heberling really, summarized it very well. But just as for me, I would like to see mental health treated, which is starting to be, but even more so to be treated as naturally as physical health is treated and regarded as part of a person's health, overall health. And that's where I would like to also add that for mental health awareness, we've touched on it a little bit in our discussion that, yes, we talk about mental health disorders and generally when stress and other life challenges get to the point where there's a diagnosable pattern of behavior, then there definitely should be awareness that there is help out there, but also an awareness of just mental health in general. So like Dr. Heberling pointed out, focus on our care, our self-care, and what we do on a daily basis to refill. We as counselors use the term refilling our bucket. Each of us give so much energy to our families, to our work, to our community, to many different tasks. Even the activities that we enjoy doing, we then want to take time to refuel ourselves, our resources. And that comes in many different forms. Like Dr. Heberling said, exercise, prayer, meditation, spiritual activities, pleasurable activities, anything that a person feels regenerated from, restorative activities. And that is also being aware of our mental health. So as we go forward and being more aware of our mental health, I would like to see that be more of a part of people's lives on a daily basis and incorporated into what we do for ourselves at home as well as at work. So if employers pay attention to that and they allow room for that, that will also help with that awareness and support that is so much needed.
We have been talking to Dr. Michele Heberling, Chief Clinical Officer here at CommQuest. Thank you very much for taking your time out of your day and coming and talking to us. And we've also been talking to Grete Heberling, Clinical Site Coordinator at Alliance Outpatient. Grete, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you very much for listening. And if you want to know more about CommQuest, if you want to find out how to seek services, or if you want to find out how you can help, I would direct you to CommQuest.org. And once again, that is CommQuest.org. There's an assortment of numbers on there for different resources that you can access and find out more information about what we do here at CommQuest Services. Thank you very much for listening to the Hope Discovered podcast. My name is Bill, and have a great day.